joining today's Health and Wellness Learning Series and today's webinar, which is on marketing communication to children. Thank you all very, very much in advance for your time with us today as we share some information about what our member Nestle are doing on the implementation of their policy on marketing communications to children. I'm Sharon Bly. I'm Director of Health and Wellness here at the Consumer Goods Forum, and I'm delighted to welcome today's speakers, Henri-Pierre Lenoble from Public Affairs at Nestle and Nigel Conway from the Marketing and Communications at Nestle. As you'll see today, we really want to make sure that we have enough time for questions. We held the same webinar this morning and we had lots of interaction and questions from the participants. We hope to do the same with you in this afternoon session. So please feel free to use the best of Nigel and Henri-Pierre's expertise on marketing communications to children. You'll see here on your screen there are two ways of asking questions. You can either email me directly. My email is directly on the screen, s.bligh@theconsumergoodsforum.com, or you can see on the right-hand side of your screen you should have a chat box, and if you send us questions during the webinar in the chat room, we'll get back to you promptly on those questions. So please do take the opportunity today to make the most of everyone's time. We'd love to hear your feedback, and as I mentioned, this is a learning series, so we're all learning as we collaborate, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions. So today's agenda, I'll just give you a very quick context overview of the Health and Wellness Pillar here at the CGF, what commitment we've made on marketing communications to children. Then we'll dive into the Nestle example and how the team at Nestle are implementing and strengthening their policy. A quick update on what's next, and we'll leave ample time at the end of the webinar to go through all of the questions that you may have on today's webinar. So if we look at the Consumer Goods Forum, many of you know us, many of you we may be new. We're a business organization of 400 member companies, and we really work together efficiently for positive change. We have a global board of directors of 54 CEOs who are guiding us on a number of strategic topics. You have our area, which is health and wellness, but we also work on environmental sustainability, social sustainability, product safety, notably our Global Food Safety Initiative, and end-to-end value chain and standards, everything to do with building consumer trust and transparency. And we do all of this to create knowledge by and for our members, and our objective is to share back this best practice and this knowledge back to the entire membership, which is why our member Nestle has agreed to share their best practice and their knowledge on what they're doing on marketing communications to children today. So to give you more detail on what we work on in health and wellness, you'll see here on the screen our framework. So this is the framework for action that our Health and Wellness Steering Committee, a group of about 30 executives, which are led by Ahold Delhaize and Nestle. And this team really drives to implement the strategy of this framework. What we work towards is empowered, healthy consumers globally. We have two main segments. We have collaborative industry leadership, which you'll see here, where we work on projects in collaboration for healthier lives and looking after our own people and employee health and wellness. And we have really the fundamentals that each individual company we want to encourage you all to implement on marketing communications to children, product reformulation, and consumer product information. What we've agreed to do is to measure and report annually how we're progressing in the implementation of our resolutions and commitments. We work on stakeholder engagement, both internally with our members and externally with external stakeholders, and all of this in the idea of a positive action agenda on health and wellness. If you want to know more about any of what we're doing or the projects we have in that framework, all of the details is available on the consumergoodsforum.com website. So as I mentioned, we work really to build traction and engagement with our members on the implementation of a set of resolutions and commitments that we have agreed to with our board of directors. And when we first started our work on health and wellness in 2010, 2011, the board of directors agreed to 3 areas where they really wanted to build engagement and traction around the work of each of our member companies. The first area where we thought as retailers and manufacturers we could make a difference was offering consumers and shoppers a range of products and services that support the goals of healthier diets and lifestyles. The second area where we thought we could come together was really around information and providing that fact-based and transparent information to empower consumers to make more informed product choices and usages. And the third area where we thought we got unique capabilities as retailers and manufacturers was around communication and education. So we're really working to raise awareness and also prevention and inspire healthier diets and lifestyles. And then in 2014, the board, along with the steering committee, made 4 public commitments. The first 2 that you'll see here on your screen on making company policies on nutrition and product formulation public and implementing employee health and wellness programs came to term at the end of 2016. And we now have working groups working on both of those areas who are working on the next steps and what will be next in those 2 areas and how we ensure that we work on a continuous improvement model. And the last 2 commitments that we have to reach by the end of 2018 are implementing industry-wide product labeling and consumer information to help those empowered consumers. And the area here where we will focus on today is to stop marketing communications to children under 12, food and beverages that don't fulfill specific nutrition criteria. So that commitment we have made, and as I said, we'll be working until the end of 2018 to drive and increase implementation of our work in this area. We have a work stream led by Ahold Delhaize and Mars, who are helping us to drive forward the implementation of this commitment. And our colleagues at Nestle now today will bring us into what they're doing at Nestle to strengthen their commitment and their policy on marketing communications to children. So with that quick introduction, I'll hand you over to Henri-Pierre to bring us through the Nestle strategy. Henri-Pierre.
Thank you, and good afternoon, good morning, everybody, depending on where you are in the world. Nigel and myself are very happy and proud to share with you what we do in terms of marketing communication to children, and especially highlighting the journey we've engaged into and what are the next steps for us, and especially as we have issued very recently a new policy. We'll share with you the details of this new policy. I apologize in advance for my broken voice, and if you hear me coughing and sneezing, we even in the Swiss Alps we have some bugs, so I catch the cold recently, but it should be okay at least for this presentation. I will give you at the beginning a bit of context, external context and internal context as well, and I will give the floor after to Nigel to go a bit more in the principles and the details of the policy, what it means more concretely, and also including some examples at the end. But I'll start with the external context, and things very likely most of you know, but I think it's great to have them on 1 or 2 slides. Back in 2010, WHO issued a set of recommendations on marketing of food and non-alcoholic beverages to children. And in this recommendation, there was clearly the aim of the policy to reduce the impact on children of marketing of foods high in saturated fats, trans fatty acids, free sugars, and salt. And of course, this is really something Nestle is endorsing, is supporting, and our policy is very much based and ingrained into these recommendations. And if you go to the next slide, you see the year after, in 2011, a UN resolution addressing also the issue of marketing to children and having a clear call to the private sector to engage into marketing, reducing the impact of marketing of unhealthy food and non-alcoholic beverages. So you see from 2010, 2011, very clear recommendations from external bodies, be it WHO, be it UN, to the private sector to reduce the impact of marketing to children. So that's a bit of external context. If we go internally from a Nestlé point of view to the next slide, we have very recently re-articulated what we call our purpose. But actually, the rearticulation of the purpose and the sentence you see here, which is about enhancing quality of life and contributing to a healthier future, is very much ingrained into the DNA of the company. Our founder, Henri Nestlé, started the company in 1866 by the development of the farine lactée, which helped to save the life of a child at the time. And along these years, between 1866 until today, one of the major objectives of Nestlé has been to help children lead healthier lives. So you see here is just a rearticulation, a rephrasing of it, but at the end, we have a very strong ambition to help children lead healthier lives. We make an impact on three areas in this through this purpose, which is individuals and families, and that's maybe where we have a bit more of a focus today. And it's again about helping 50 million children lead healthier lives. So we have a clear ambition and objectives also with numbers, but it's also around communities and it's also around planet where we will make an impact. But of course, when it comes to marketing to children, we will spend more time on the first impact area, which is helping 50 million children lead healthier lives. If you go to the next slide, this ambition is not only words and phrase and nice sentence, but at the end, it's supported by very robust commitments. We've issued publicly into our last Nestlé in Society report. And these commitments, I showed just a picture of the ones that are related to the individuals and families impact area. But you have commitments around product reformulation. You have commitment like, for example, the aim to further, the number 2, the aim to further decrease sugars, sodium, and saturated fat. You have commitments around increasing the content of vegetables, grains, etc., which is the one you see just after. You have commitments around communication, and the one, of course, that makes sense in the context of our discussion today is the one I've highlighted, the last one of the first column, which is we want to market to children only choices that help them achieve a nutritious diet. So in line with the recommendation, and Nigel will come to the principles in the slide after, but in line with the recommendation of WHO and UN, and also in line of what we believe is right to do for the kids, is to make sure that our efforts will be more geared towards helping children having a healthier diet and restricting marketing to children on more indulgent categories. And I think I will give the floor now to Nigel to give some more details on the principles of the policy.
Thanks, Henri-Pierre. So if you look at the next slide, as Henri-Pierre has already said, we're making quite a significant commitment to help 50 million children lead healthier lives by 2030. In terms of those principles, the key principles that we'll be adopting, it's really about driving a business responsible approach to marketing communication to children. And it's business responsible because clearly, we are like yourselves, running, we're responsible to shareholders. So therefore we're responsible for, a business outcome, but also we're responsible to consumers as well in terms of making sure that we deliver the services and products that enable them to live good lives. As also we move forward with our policy, we want to make sure that we support the ambition of tastier and healthier lives for families and children. And more importantly, we want to try and limit the pester power for children within our marketing communication policy, particularly on indulgent categories that Henri-Pierre has just highlighted. And that's one of the things that we've refocused on as we move forward in our new policy in 2018 to actually make sure that we're actually progressing the policy and evolving something that consumers really see as a responsible approach to communication. Something that's really important to us, if you go to the next slide, is external recognition. And again, it's important for us in terms of marketeers to demonstrate that we're doing the right things. We're taking a responsible approach to our communication, but more importantly also to our investors as well. They invest in our company because they believe that we're a responsible company and also that we're serving our consumers, as I said earlier, correctly. In the HNI ranking for 2016, it was great. We were ranked 3rd. Our ambition is to at least maintain or improve that position as we move forward with the ATI in 2018. And again, what we do, I think like many of you, is that we ask the ATI for feedback because we do want to improve. We want to understand where we can actually get better. And we took out 3 key points from the ATI survey from 2016. One of them was about the audience viewing thresholds. Currently, we have an audience viewing threshold of 35%, which is basically in line with the EU pledge criteria. The second was that they wanted us to actually look at further extending the communication channels beyond those that we currently have in terms of marketing to children. And then finally, provide more external auditing of the results that we're achieving. So if we go to the next chart, what I've shown you here is just basically the evolution of our policy. We had a marketing to children policy before 2009, but that's where we really started to actually set down targets and KPIs in terms of performance measures. Our policy as a company has always been not to market to children under 6 years, whatever the case, whatever the category. We don't do that. As I said earlier, we also now set thresholds in terms of audience. When we started in 2009, it was 50%, and now that's been brought down to 35%. Also, along the way, we stopped directing marketing to children, particularly to certain indulgent categories like biscuits, sugar, and chocolate confectionery. And also in 2015, we further increased the media channel coverage. So with that, I want to take us forward now to 2018. Henri Pierre and I have just completed quite a sort of a challenging, I would say, process that we've actually gone through. And I think that the point I would make to everyone is that, we're like you, we're a large business. Nestle is a very large operation. We've got lots of different companies, lots of different stakeholders that have lots of different views and beliefs. And Henri Pierre and myself, it's our task is to actually bring all those people together and make sure that we have one policy that operates across all our companies that everybody can actually sign up to. So that in itself is actually quite a feat. It takes quite a lot of diplomacy, and it actually takes a lot of time and effort as well. But I'm pleased to say that we're very fortunate. We work with people that want to further uphold the Nestle values and improve on those. But again, we also have to live by being business responsible, which is also quite an interesting balance when you're trying to look at these things. So if you go to the next chart, I'm just going to really highlight some of the changes that we've actually made for 2018. So as I said before, there's no change to the reference to the age of under 6. Under 6 still, for us, is an age area that we won't market to children on. And that's, again, the same for our 2018 policy. When we actually look at specific categories for 6 to 12-year-olds, we've decided to actually add further categories that we will not market directly to children. We're adding ice cream. We're adding water-based beverage products with added sugar. So that's in addition to also the marketing of biscuits, sugar, and chocolate confectionery products. So we're extending those categories by quite a way. I mentioned the ATI survey, and the ATI survey pointed to us in terms of TV viewing thresholds. And we've decided as a company, as from January 2018, we will move to a stricter stricter threshold level. So we'll move from 35% down to 25%. And again, that's across all our businesses. So that's quite a big commitment that we're making there. And then finally, the other area that AT&I picked up on was the channels in scope. And what we've decided to do now is to add point of sale and also licensed on-pack characters to our channels of communication. So we'll now be excluding those as well. And again, the point of sale and licensed on-pack characters, we think is a big step. It's a big step because we want to reduce the pester power that we talked about earlier on in terms of the commitments that we want to make by 2030. So we see that as a big area. One thing that we won't change, we're still committed to using our owned characters. They're part of our brand's IP, so we will continue to use those. However, what we are doing as a company is making some very positive changes to our packaging, particularly with our own characters. I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a minute of actually what we're doing in that area. So if we can look at the next chart, please. So going forward, it's all very well having a policy, and you've got to make sure that that policy is implemented and people understand that policy. So what we've actually done about a year ago, we set about with the WFA, and we worked with them on developing a very simple, practical road test. So this is something that all our marketing people, they take this road test on an annual basis. It's a series of questions that they have to answer. So they get a score, and they have to demonstrate that they fully understand our policy and the commitments we are making as a company, because we take it very, very seriously indeed. So that's also baked into people's performance assessments at the year end. So again, they'll have to tick the box to say they've taken the road test, and also that they've got a reasonable score on the road test. What we also do is we track the scores so we can see how markets are doing in terms of performance, and where we can see if a market is falling slightly behind, then obviously we'll provide more training materials for that market, and we'll go and do more in-market training as required. So how are we going to measure success? So if we move forward to the next chart, I talked also about the AT&I survey, and they were very keen that we continue to audit our results. So for us, it's about having positive results based on external audits, both by Nestle and also IFBAR audits as well. We've also taken on board another company which we're using here called Bureau Veritas, and they'll be working with us to ensure that we're actually getting the right level of commitments that we say we should be getting across markets and our businesses. So again, that's another commitment that we're making in terms of auditing. The other measure of success, as I've already said, we really hope that we're going to get an improvement in our AT&I ranking next year. So we were ranked 3rd in 2016, and we're hoping that we can actually improve on that. And the final area is positive stakeholder feedback. That's really important for us, that we have key opinion leaders, and they come back to us and they support us in the actions that we take. And again, at that level, we involve our most senior management in this. So in the next chart, just showing you now some of the measures that we've taken in terms of the licensed characters on pack, and just 2 examples that we're showing you here. On the left-hand side is our some ice cream products. You can see there things like Hello Kitty and Spider-Man were being used as licenses. They will no longer happen. On one of our brands for Crunch there, on the right-hand side, a confectionery brand, we use peanuts. Again, that will not be used going forward. If we look at the next chart, I just want to give you an example of some of the packaging changes that we're actually making. I think most of you are hopefully familiar with one of our key brands, which is Nesquik, which is a chocolate malt beverage drink. And Nesquik powder here, which we're showing the packaging for that. You can see the changes we've made to the pack. So there's 2 things to note here. The bunny character that we use, we call Quickie, and he's part of our IP. Quickie, basically what's going to happen with Quickie is he's going to become smaller on the pack. So no longer will Quickie actually dominate the pack. He's now going to be a smaller visual on the pack. Also, a key difference between the two packs, you can see on the left-hand side, Quickie is grabbing hold of a beverage, so he's interacting with the beverage. Whereas now with our new pack on the right-hand side, Quickie is not interacting with the beverage anymore, but more importantly, Quickie is now a very strong advocate of nutritional criteria and actually pointing to that nutritional criteria. And we'll be doing exactly the same across all our other packaging areas where we have own characters. They will be very much involved in terms of talking more about the nutritional qualification of the brand rather than interacting with the brand going forward. So there's just a couple of quick changes I wanted to show you. And with that, I want to hand back to Henri-Pierre just to finish up.
Thank you, Nigel. And I will just have a conclusion slide on multi-stakeholder engagement. Actually, we don't believe we can make a difference alone. I think it's very obvious to say this, but I think it's worth highlighting also in this presentation. Of course, we are putting the best possible policy as we have to act in a responsible manner, and we have to put our things in order internally, and that's what we are doing through this policy. But also, we believe that we must be engaged externally with either other companies like yours, or like in this example I'm mentioning the EU pledge, which was founded in 2007. You see 11 founding members, and then you had other companies joining in over the years. And actually, EU pledge is very interesting because it has set a quite ambitious self-regulation on marketing to children through the different specific guidelines, but including the use of nutrition criteria and including other guiding principles. It's covering a significant amount of ad spend in the EU. It's more than 80% of food and beverage ad spend in the EU, and it's supported by WFA, so the World Federation of Advertisers. So this is just one example of engaging with others on this topic to make sure that we have an impact, that we have a common big impact on children. Here is the example on multi-industry initiative, but of course, it's also about engaging with other type of stakeholders to make sure that there is a significant impact. So that would be the conclusion slide of this presentation. Thank you for being present and for listening to us, and thank you now for the questions you may have. We'll be happy with Nigel to answer your questions.
Great, wonderful. Thank you very much, Nigel and Henri-Pierre, for your time. And just before I open it up for Q&A, just so everybody knows what's next, is that we do have a working group that I mentioned earlier on of retailers and manufacturers who are coming together to look at the barriers to implementation and how we can really drive those implementation rates between now and the end of 2018. So this, Nestle kindly are sharing their best practice with you, and it's something we hope to repeat and to continue to do between now and 2018 to reach a target of 100% implementation of the commitment by the end of 2018. So if you are interested, there is a working group of retailer and manufacturers who discuss all of the challenges and issues in this area, and if you would like to get involved, please do get in contact with me. So now we have plenty of time for questions. So you have my email, which is here on the screen again, s.bly@consumergoodsforum.com, or you can use the chat box, which is at the right-hand side of the screen. So I'll start off just by the first one that I've received by email. Nigel or Henri-Pierre, could you comment on some of the biggest challenges that you have with online and how you're managing the whole digital aspect on responsible marketing to children?
Okay, that's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, that is a big challenge for us, to be honest with you. You know, the problem is that we're led to believe that social media, particularly, you've got to be, you know, at least 16 to sign up for most social media sites these days. In reality, we know that's not true. You know, and it's interesting because a lot of you have just lived through this horrible incident with Google, yeah, in terms of brand safety, and in reality, it's something that we can address, and it's something that we can easily filter. And I think there's a lot of controls out there that we can place. We can put a lot more pressure on both our media agency partners and also on the vendors themselves to actually put the right controls in place. So, for instance, if you want a safe environment for your kids, then you've got YouTube Kids, and I can tell you now, YouTube Kids is a pretty safe environment. So it just shows you it can be done, and that's what we're going to be working on over the next few months to try and make sure that we can make some significant inroads in that. But it's very difficult.
Yeah. And to add on what Nigel was saying, also through the road test, we are giving directions for our brand builders to do the appropriate communication on including digital, and especially how they can move from a children targeted type of communication to a more gatekeeper targeted communication. So this is about the tone of voice they use when they have games, for example, that should be less childish and more oriented to gatekeepers. So we give practical examples and tools on how they can move towards a more gatekeeper type of communication.
Yeah, and I think also within that, we're also a very strong believer in really good guidelines for all our markets. And one thing that we are very good at, I'd say, as a company, is making sure our markets adhere to those guidelines and those policies. So we have a very strict brand safety and what I call content appropriateness guidelines. And again, we've just upgraded those again. So coming back to what I said earlier, I think it is possible to actually get to a good position with online.
Great, thank you. Our next, and of course, with Henri Pierre and Nigel, if there are more details requested, we'll connect you with the people who've answered the questions after it. So the next question.
Yeah, no, and again, I think that's absolutely right, Sharon. I mean, again, I think both Henri Pierre and myself had actually said, look, I mean, sometimes people don't want to ask all the questions they want to, they'd ideally like to ask, and we're more than happy to have some one-to-ones with people if necessary, and just give you the benefit of what we've gone through. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And the next question is on the enhancements to your 2018 policies, and there's three aspects that are covered. If you can provide more explanation to the enhancements which covered POS and licensed character on pack. And the question is, how do you define a point of sale, and how are you guaranteeing that your products are not located in the checkout aisles?
Okay, so as far as we're concerned, all our non-compliant brands will be, first of all, they'll be directed at the gatekeeper. We want all our point of sale materials now to be gatekeeper focused. We've gone down quite a sort of stringent path in terms of packaging and making sure that packaging does adhere to all the new policy principles. So as I said earlier, for instance, owned characters will be much smaller on pack now, so they'll be less visible. In terms of point of sale materials, by point of sale materials we mean basically anything in the store that has a marketing communication. What you won't see us do, you won't see us have a miniature toy fair type thing in the store with sort of hopscotch and goodness knows what, enticing kids, and we won't have characters in big fluffy costumes and those types of things. The in-store activations that you will see from Nestle will be very much health and nutrition focused. And again, it's interesting because Henri Pierre and I sat through a session with one of the markets, in fact, just a few weeks ago, wasn't it, Henri Pierre?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and they wanted to do a whole range of things. And in the end, we just said no. You know, we didn't believe that was in the spirit of the policy, because we really do want our policy to be very much a responsible one, and one that is, you know, talking to gatekeepers. But and then the final part, I think, of the question was about checkout. Yeah, I mean, you know, our commitment, as far as we're concerned, again, is that we will not have products that do not meet the nutritional criteria. And there will be nothing aimed at kids in point of sale. That's it. And I said I think the only brands that we do have some child facing will be Waters, but that's pure water.
And then there's a follow-up question on the licensed characters. With the licensed characters, does that enhancement apply to all licensed characters on all packaging? For example, packaging in the grocery store shelf that is not marketed to children?
I mean, we're talking about licensed characters primarily appealing to kids, and so we're really in the context of kids communication. I don't know if this is answering the question, but that's the focus of the policy, is to make sure that we don't use licensed characters primarily appealing to kids in product that we call non-eligible, meaning either product from confectionery, ice cream, sugary beverages, etc., and all products that are not compliant to the EU pledge or other local criteria, other pledge criteria in the world that have been defined. So it's really I mean, we can talk to parents, we can talk to others, but on the primarily appeal to kids, that's the one we want to restrict.
Yeah, and I think on licensed characters, I mean, you know, we have now got very, very few brands that are using licensed characters, very few. The only exception that we're going to have in our policy, which again is public, is that we'll still continue to support seasonal products, particularly at Easter. So that's probably one area that we will have premiums and premiums on the packaging or in the egg. But again, it's unlikely that we'll use licensed characters. You know, we're really trying to move away from that whole area. And as Henri-Pierre said, even for eligible products, it's a very few. But for competitive reasons, I'm not prepared to say what they are.
The next question, we've got lots coming in. Is Nestle conducting an independent audit of compliance to its marketing commitments or planning to do so in the future?
The answer is yes. Yes, we are. As I said earlier, so we've taken on board this external auditing company called Bureau Veritas. We've been working with them on other things for quite a while anyway, so we know them quite well. And they will provide an independent, so we will sort of do a scattergun approach of our market. So we can't audit every single market. But so auditing, sorry, let me just rephrase that. So auditing happens for us at two levels. One, we have independent auditing, and this is Bureau Veritas, and they will take each year they will take a number of markets, and they will go in and they will check the commitments that we're making. So we'll get a report back on that. And as Henri-Pierre said, I mean, that's also reported then externally in our shareholders report and in our CSV reports as well. The other thing that we do that is that I think is very strong indeed is that we have a very, very good internal audit process here at Nestle. It's called Nestle Group Audit, and this is where we do a full audit of markets, literally from top to bottom. And as part of that process, we now have marketing to children as one of the areas that they come back and commit to and comment to us on. So we get full reports of market performance. So within that, there'll be a full assessment of the market's capability in terms of the commitments that they're making and have they been carried out correctly. So we're doing it at two levels. Internally, which one could say is a slightly softer option, but I can tell you now from what I see on the NGA reports, they're very, very detailed indeed, and we take them very seriously. You know, when we get the reports back, they go straight to our executive board. I'm one of the sign-offs for the report for marketing and consumer communication, and then that goes right up to the board, and we have, you know, a timetable by which these various things have to be fixed. So, you know, I think it's pretty thorough.
Great, thank you. The next question, how long did it take you to complete this process from the idea that you were going to modify your policies all the way to completion and alignment?
Okay, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I would say probably in full truth, it took us something in the range of around about, from start to finish, around about 15 months, I'd say, around about that. So, I mean, you know, as with all these things, there's always a little bit of a hiatus period. But the biggest thing for us, and I think also for a lot of the people on the call, is actually aligning all the various stakeholders. And I think, you know, just from memory, I had to align with around about 30 different stakeholders, and then various people within that. So if you talk about, you know, at least 3 meetings with 30 odd stakeholders, so that's 90 odd meetings. So that's why it takes a reasonable amount of time, because as I said earlier, you know, it's a very important commitment that we're making, but also it does have business implications. And therefore we have to make sure that not only all those stakeholders, but also our executive board as well, are fully aligned to that. So it goes from, you know, right to the very top of the tree to get the sign off.
And also, I just want to add to this, once all the process of alignment is done, you have also to issue a very official document that we publish externally, which is our Nestlé policy. And that is visible very clearly externally. And just this one is also taking some time, because you need to weigh all the words you're using inside to make sure that you're crystal clear to the outside. It requires also some legal reading. So it's,
yeah, and I think you're right on that.
Very important.
Yeah, it's very important. And also, unfortunately, there are also some external opinion leaders who clearly, you know, they see one word out of check and they want to challenge you on that. So that's why we have to get it really right. The other thing that also we do, we obviously have our policy, which is a formal document, as Henri-Pierre said, but we also issue what we call implementational guidelines as well. So these are made easier for markets. So we give markets, you know, a very simple decision tree. We really lead them through the process so they can fully understand the implications of the policy and what they'll need to do to implement it. And that in itself, again, is a big undertaking in terms of actually getting those types of materials together. So yeah, it takes around about 15 months, I'd say.
And maybe to summarize on the documents, we have 3 levels of documents. We have the official policy, which goes outside. It's a summary putting everything for the outside world. We have the implementation guidelines, which gives more granularity and details on the implementation. And then we have the road test, which is the marketing training, which is a bit more visual, a bit more practical. So there are 3 levels of documents we're using internally.
Yeah.
Great. The next question, we're getting plenty more, is about your brand characters. So it would be interesting to understand more about how Nestlé are using their brand characters responsibly. Can you share if you have defined a size, for example, a percentage of the pack, or is it just to reduce the size? And do the examples shared with the Nesquik brand apply to other brand characters at Nestlé?
Yeah, well, so in reverse order, yes, they do. We're going to apply exactly the same principles to other owned characters. So, you know, we really want to make sure that any owned characters are used responsibly going forward. So you won't see interaction on packs with that. That's for sure. In terms of that reduction, you know, I can continue now. The quickie one is around about 25%, something like that, reduction in size. And again, you know, I'm not saying that's the yardstick that we'll use for all owned characters, but to be sure, we will be reducing the size of them. And as I said, they will not be interacting with the brand of the product.
Great, thank you. The next question was about the road test. Do the Nestlé personnel need to pass the road test? And is there a pass mark? And do they need to take it annually?
Okay, it's not too draconian. Yeah, look, I mean, the results, I think there's something like about 24 questions on Pierre, 24, 25 questions, something like that.
Maybe more. We have 3 modules.
We've got 3 modules, but you know, each module's got around about say 24 questions, something like that. Now, if somebody got, you know, less than half right, then I think probably their manager or whoever it may be may turn around to that person and say, hey, come on, you know, you need to have another go at this. It's quite a tough test actually, and Andrew and Pierre, I think we've just about scraped in full marks, but it took a couple of attempts. But joking apart, yeah, I mean, we take it seriously, and as I said earlier, we do look at the results, we do track performance across the market, and I think within the market, yes, they will be tracking individuals, and if somebody has really, you know, had a bad day in the office with a result, then I think somebody politely may say, well, look, how about having another go?
Great, thank you. And it's taken annually?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's an annual test. And in fact, it's actually funny you should say that, because we've actually had some markets that, you know, they're doing it more regularly than that. It's just, yeah. And again, it really depends on the churn that you've got within brands and things like that.
Great. The next question is regarding auditing. Regards the audit, what measures are you tracking?
Well, basically, we track all the commitments that we're asking people to make. So, for instance, whether it be the audience threshold that they're using for media channels, making sure that all their packaging is aligned to what I've just talked about, making sure that the own characters on pack aren't interacting with the product, doing store visits, making sure that the in-store materials are not contravening the commitments that we're making. Yeah, I mean, we look at all the areas of our policy, and again, it is you know, we can't do every single market, but you know, we do a very good proportion of it, both externally and also with our own Nestle Group audit team as well.
And it's pretty much compliance, meaning it's either yes or no. I mean, it's
there's no grey area.
The team is going and looking at the store communication prints. They will judge if this is in line with the policy or not, and then they will give us the feedback on the compliance of this based on the policy.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that works very well for us, I mean, we have I think quite an open culture within our communication teams at Nestle, and you know, I've got some very strong relationships with our markets, and as a result of that, it really has enabled markets to contact us and say, what do you think of this? You know, what do you think of that? You know, are we in line with policy or not? So we have got it to a really good level now, where it's very, very rare that a market would take a borderline decision on their own on something. They will always come to talk to us first because they know that it's a very important area for the company.
Great. The next question we've received was about your enhanced policy, and it uses a 25% threshold. What about media where no audience data is available? And do you have a written standard that you apply for non-measured media?
Okay, we take a common sense approach. Yeah. So where there's no measurement available, I literally say to people, let's look at the genre, yeah, of the media that we're aiming to go in, and then we take a viewpoint from there. So even where we don't have, you know, where there's no measurement in place, we will just take a point of view. And if anything, I think it tends to be it's a tougher view rather than a lenient view. So we'll look at the genre of what we're buying into.
Great. Next question. Thank you everyone for all of these questions. Does the policy cover all social media such as Instagram or Snapchat?
Yes, it does. And again, you know, this is the part that, you know, I think we're challenging more. because we know younger people are using social media, although the sign-up age is above 12 years, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, we're very mindful of that, and that's something that I'm working on at the moment to actually make sure that we have stricter controls in place. And more importantly, I'm talking to those vendors themselves about making sure that they have better controls in place as well for brands.
Super. Well, I've come to the end of everything that we've received by chat and by email, so thank you very, very much everyone for all of the questions and feedback, and of course we can happily do some follow-up after the webinar with Henri-Pierre and Nigel. And if you want to connect with us, you'll see on the screen all of the different websites and avenues that you can reach out to us here at CGF, and we'll connect you up with today's speakers. So a huge thank you to everyone who joined us today for all the questions and interactivity, and we look forward to connecting with you all in the future and to continue to drive the commitment on marketing communications to children. A big thank you for your support, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the future. Thank you, Henri-Pierre, and thank you, Nigel.
Yeah, can we just, and I think on behalf of Henri-Pierre, I just want to thank again everybody for joining the call. We see great value in this information exchange. We're very passionate about what we do, and more importantly, we're very passionate about marketing to children. So we really hope that we can bring everybody along the same journey that we've got along, and together we can build a better community, better feedback, and better policies. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.